Hello, everybody. Welcome to 61 of Short Viewer. Today we'll be going over chapter 1178 of One Piece. Now, this week's chapter was actually phenomenal, but it was also disappointing because this chapter was supposed to be the big final battle of the Elbaf arc. Or at least I was expecting it to be, because it was finally Loki and Luffy are about to face off against Gonko and Imu. So I was expecting some crazy Katakuri versus Luffy fight. I thought this was gonna be some crazy fight, but it was not that, because the chapter starts off, we see as Luffy ends up taking Usopp and Brook from the battlefield so that him and Loki can fight Gonko Imu freely. And this ends up happening, and then Loki tries to attack Gonko or Imu. I'm just gonna call it Imu, because I mean Imu is the one who's controller. He's the one who's actually doing the stuff. So yeah, so we see as Imu is attacked by Loki in his Needhogger form, but he's unable to hit Imu because he is too small in his form. So ultimately, he ends up giving up on attacking like that. And we see as him and Luffy are both trying to figure this out, but Imu tries to pull Domi Reversi on them. And he penetrates both of them. He gets them both with the spears, so he's going to plan and make them hate each other and go against each other. However, with this, we actually don't see either of them get affected by Domi Reversi. Now, I mean, by all regards, Loki should be affected by Domi Reversi because he's in his homeland and he is penetrated by the tendril. So, I mean, he should be Domi Reversi'd. I mean, it's understandable for Luffy not to have been, because I wouldn't presume Elbaf is Luffy's homeland. Like, we don't technically know, but I doubt he was born there. But yeah, and Imu says, as I presumed, y'all are one of those. And well, he doesn't say y'all because Emu is not from the deep south, but he says you are one of those. So we don't really know what that means. It can't be because they're a conqueror, because Rox was able to be Domi Reversi'd. It can't be because they have the Will of D, because Rox was able to be Domi Reversi'd. I don't know if Loki has Will of D, but even if it was, like I said, Rox was Domi Reversi'd, so it doesn't matter. So I really don't know what that contingent is, because I mean, I wouldn't presume it can be because they're a god, because I don't believe Loki is a god, but Luffy is. But yeah, then after that we have progresses along, and ultimately Loki decides to shrink down into his actual giant form, and he ends up using an attack from Ragnar, and ultimately ends up freezing Imu Gonko, and this essentially defeats Imu Gonko, and we see as Luffy ends up dropping out of Gear 5 and gets all old and famished, as he always does. But yeah, then after this, we kind of just get a perspective of everyone else as everything's going on. We see that the Giants are freeing up more of their fellow crewmates, and they slowly break it down to where there's only a few left who are Domi Reversi, and we see Chopper going around slapping people up and removing the Domi Reversi off them, which is still astonishing, because how is he able to do that? He shouldn't be able to do that, but he does. He can break one of the most powerful attacks of the main villain of the series, but I don't know. And I mean, a good thing was brought up, because he's doing this, and Zoro's like, I wonder if it's just because you're that good of a doctor. And I mean, that would be very fitting for Chopper's character, because I mean, Chopper's dream is to cure every disease. And I don't know if Domi Reverse would be considered a disease. It would certainly be considered an ailment of some sort. So maybe it's, I mean, that'd be kind of a crappy excuse, but it could be a actual plausible excuse. But yeah, so maybe it's just because Chopper's a really good doctor and his fruit has somehow adapted as such, and maybe he's able to slap the humanity into someone or something like that. But yeah. So then after that, we go to the perspective of Robin and Saul, who are in the big library, and we go in there and we see that all of the books have been removed and protected, and they can't find Biblo anywhere, who's an owl who watches over the library. So they presume that Biblo took off all the books where they could be burned and secured the library, which had so much information about Ohara and all that good stuff. But yeah, then after that we flash back to Loki and Luffy, with Luffy exasperated on the ground, hacking in his old man form, wanting some food, and Loki's like, bro, go get your own food, man. And during this we see as, because what Loki did with his attack, it was a Ragnar attack called Nibelheim, and it essentially froze Gunko and Imu in this cube of, I mean, it's a crap, not a cube, rectangular prism of ice. And we see as Imu, who is kind of protruding from Gunko, slowly starts to fade within there, and Gunko is left in there herself. And we see as Imu ultimately ends up going back, and we see him in the Room of Flowers, or whatever it's called, and he speaks to the five elders. He's like, okay, I will be leaving Marie-Joie for a time. So we have an insane setup with Imu possibly leaving Marie-Joie next chapter. This is big. This is really big. Like, we don't know what Imu's going to be doing, and Imu now has a greater understanding of the powers of both Luffy and Loki that they don't really, it's unlikely that they know that they have, because it's nothing that we've known before, because it's not Willa D, it's not Conqueror's Haki, it's none of that crazy stuff. It is something that is unique, it is new. So Imu has a leg up, and I don't believe Imu's just going to straight up pull up to Elbaf. That's not going to happen, because I presume Emo is like final villain, or like one of the last villains. And we still, honestly, I was talking with my girlfriend today, and I honestly believe we probably have at least 6 years left of One Piece based on the pacing at the moment, because I mean, Elbaf was almost it's going close to the end, but it was like almost a 2-year arc, and it was a short one. And I would say we have every bit of 300 chapters left. And I mean, if we take about the 50 or so chapters that Elbaf was and multiply it by 2 years, well, I mean, if it takes 2 years to get 50 out, and then I'd say we have every bit of 300 chapters left. So 2 times 3, 6. Not 2 times 3. 2 is 50. So 50 times 6 is. So we might have a decade left in One Piece, but I highly doubt it. But yeah. So I'm really ready to see where this goes, because I mean, Imu is like main villain, like I said. So I really don't know what's gonna happen, but hopefully it will be sick. And I mean, hopefully it won't just be like some boring battle like happened with this. I was honestly kind of disappointed, because I was expecting like some large scale battle happening between Gunko, Imu, and Luffy and Loki. Like, that would have been so sick. Like, it would have been fast paced, hyped, all that good stuff. So it is a little bit disappointing to not see what is presumably the last big fight of Elbaf end in such a climactic way, because I mean, it feels like we've been ripped off when it comes to a lot of battles recently, just like kind of clashes and stuff like that. I mean, that's all this really ended up amounting to. I mean, Imu dodged like one attack and then got hit with Ragnar and Nibelheim. So yeah, kind of disappointing, but yeah, that's all I really have to say about chapter 1178 of One Piece, and all I really have for episode 61 of Shelf Review. But I also wanted to like briefly mention how why I'm doing this now on Shelf Review is because One Piece is taking up a lot of the time in my shonen shorts, and they're no longer that short actually. So I wanted to give them their own separate time and separate episodes, so that I can fully appreciate each One Piece chapter as it comes out, and so I can give you a more in-depth discussion of it, rather than leaving out some of the stuff that I do in the shonen shorts, because like I wouldn't have went into this big of a spiel in a shonen short, because then it would make it not be short. But yeah, so my One Piece chapter discussions will now be shelf reviews rather than in the shonen shorts. So if you're looking for them, you'll find them on the shelf review playlist and not the shonen shorts playlist. But thank you very much for watching.